Hello, friends. Welcome to this history news. We are now finally in April. Welcome all. I'm seeing lots of people already in the chat. My goodness. Let's see. Who have we got? Oh, lovely. Hello, Laurie. Well, we've got an awful lot of news today. This is an absolute bumper pack, as you are going to all see from the amount of thank yous that I have to give out. We are very busy. People here with bells on. Carol's coming right back. She's forgotten her bells. Are we doing a thing about maybe Morris dancers? For those of you who follow History After Dark, there will be a reference there that I'm certainly not going to repeat here. Hello, Intrepid Frady Cat. Hello, Hadrian. Lovely to see you. Hello, Rebecca. Good to see you. Thank you for the lovely comments as well. Tudorosities. Thank you for those lovely comments. It's most kind of you. Oh, it's been a big jump. Oh, goodness me. Hello, Christine from Malta. Malta's lovely. I had a lovely holiday there once upon a time. And we have hello before class. I hope you can stick around for a bit and then you'll catch us up on the catch up, unsurprisingly. In fact, for that matter, hello to everybody who is joining us here. I can see that I've got at least 60 of you. 60 is going up. Welcome. Thank you. If you're joining us live, thank you. I'm so grateful that you've made the time to spend this part of your Monday with me. If you are watching us back on the playback, thank you as well for joining us belatedly, but for consuming the history news alongside us. I'm most grateful that you've taken the time. Hello, Purple Conundrum. Good to see you. You got here on time, Sandy. We are glad to have you. Thank you very much. Devi, hello. Hello, Amy. Oh, we've had another jump. Goodness me. Jarrod, now we're going to have a conversation because once again, we're going to have to start. I'm going to start doing a disclaimer for the history news. At no point is any of this a drinking game. At no point do I promote or approve that message. It is not a drinking game. Everyone needs to behave themselves. Or if you're not behaving yourself, I am not responsible for what happens. Right, I am not exaggerating when I say we have an enormous amount of news to cover today, because I have had some wonderful people send me news items in the last week, and there are a lot of you. So let's jump right into the thanks, and then we're going to jump in. First of all, it's April, so of course I am going to crown my winner of the best April Fool history news story. You feel free to disagree. If you find one that you think is better, this is the one that won the day for me. We're then going to hop straight into updates. We're going to talk about repatriations. We have a lot of repatriation stuff to cover. We're also going to talk about our new news. We may have our new segment, the Ding Dong section, and then we've got some events and exhibitions. So lots to cover. And a sign of how much there is to cover is that I couldn't fit all of the web links into the description box. When I tried to, YouTube told me that there were too many. So you are not permitted to upload this description box. But what I have done, of course, is I've put it on the Opera pinboard so you can see all of the links on there. Unfortunately, what that does mean is that the numbers may be less useful. So I have numbered the stories as we're going to go through them, but hopefully you can count along on the Opera pinboard. The more stories I get, the more this is going to start happening. So I'm going to have to think about a workaround, which might be uploading an additional Word document with that stuff in. In fact, if that is something that you would like me to do for this episode, do let me know in the comments, because I can create that Word document with the numbers and I can put it up on as the link on the description box. So lots to cover. Let us hop straight in with the thanks. I have to say a big thank you to Yvonne, to Anne, Jessie, Adventures from Shalott, Joseph, Sheri, Crazy Artist Lady, Jarrod, Kathryn, Sarah, Anastasia, Joe, Beth, Mary, Felem, another Mary, Karolyn, Nancy, Miss Dr Kat, who, if you're not aware, is my husband, and also Yolanda. I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced. If it is Jolanda, then thank you. I apologise for mispronouncing your name the first time around. Thank you so much for taking the time to read these history news items, to think of me, and then to send them over. I am, as always, incredibly grateful. So let us. I would have to pin a full Word document because it was over by a long shot. So I don't know what the best thing to do is, and as we go forward, I think that might be what I have to do is create a Word document that then I can chuck that stuff in there. But we shall see. I can make short URL links. Oh, I will look into how to do that. Interesting. Right, that I will have to adventure into the internet to look into how to do that. That's a great idea. Thank you, Jennifer. In the meantime, the winner of the April Fool for me is this one. The Met Gala announces that the 2023 theme will be looting and plunder. We are told select A-list guests will be invited to wear any artifacts from the museum's collections that have not yet been seized by the Manhattan DA's office. Whoever put this together, there's a part of me that thinks you are one of us. You are, and if you're not already somebody who watches this, then you would fit in right away because the sass, the side eye is delightful. And in the article, I think perhaps my favourite paragraph from this was this one. Anna Wintour, Vogue editor-in-chief and namesake of the Met Costume Centre, said in an interview that she could not resist the, quote, unique opportunity to engage with some of the most fabulous objects in the museum's trove of pillaged art. Wintour has co-chaired the gala since 1995. Around the same time that looting intensified in some parts of Southeast Asia, a fact she referred to as, quote, a fun coincidence. And then the next bit also made me just crease. When reached out for comment by Hyperallergic, who did this incredible article, a Met Museum spokesperson responded with a face palm emoji. Fabulous. Quote, this would have been a good time to remind people that, and this is in caps, I have nothing to do with the Met Gala, reads a statement attributed to Met director Max Helene. Frankly, I've always felt a little cringe about the whole thing. They've really outdone themselves this year. Hyperallergic. Mazel tov. Well done. You've got massive shoes to fill next year. I will be watching closely to see what is achieved by this phenomenal publication. This is gold standard, gold stars all around. Love it. Love that. Not for the Met. They are getting... I suppose the thing is, I don't know if they've made a comment. In some ways, they have only one option. Two options. They either ignore it completely, smartest choice, or they try and go along with the joke, which if they do that poorly, makes it seem like they're making light of the frankly fairly heinous behaviour that's been going on. So that is my winner. Let us jump right in to the updates. We have got an update on that disputed Van Gogh, or Van Gogh, however you wish to pronounce it. This is the one that's been in that Detroit gallery, that there's been back and forth over who's allowed to have it, who's going to get it back. So a deal, we are told, has been reached. They're referring to it as a custody fight that created a public buzz. That is a understatement. A Broker Art Capital Partners LLC, which claims to own this piece, the novel reader, told a federal appeals court that it had reached a confidential settlement with the unnamed entity who loaned the painting to the Detroit Institute of Arts for an exhibition of Van Gogh's work that ended in January 22. That ended January 22nd. Different numerical purpose there. Because of the dispute, the museum has been under orders to hold the painting while the court determined who next would get the art. This is interesting. So we don't know what's actually happened. We don't know. It's a secret confidential settlement with an unnamed entity, so that person still remains unknown. It sounds like the museum is in trouble, and it says here the museum was caught in the middle but wasn't accused of wrongdoing. It hasn't publicly explained how it got the painting on loan, saying only that it came from a collection in Brazil. We are told, consistent with the confidential settlement, Broker Art no longer seeks injunctive relief, and therefore this appeal is mute. The museum said that it spent more than $100,000 defending itself in the litigation, which began in federal court in Detroit. It argued that a federal law governing the international sharing of art prevents courts from intervening. The US Justice Department took a similar position. The museum is still concerned about the significance of appeals court issuing an injunction in February, and it wants the court to consider declaring the injunction null and void, because presumably its existence creates precedent and could cause problems in the future. So it's resolved, but I can't help but feel like I don't feel like, apart from the fact that we know there's a resolution, I don't feel like we know what's going on. Curiosities. I mean, suspicious, possibly. My first thought is expensive. Somebody has spent a lot of money, one way or another, in what this settlement is. It's not clear where the piece is going either, to my understanding. Like, the settlement doesn't specify who gets the painting, which is also strange. Confidential settlement sounds like a fancy term for we won't press charges for your shady behaviour if you back off. But who? But who's not pressing charges? Interesting. So yes, I think that's possibly. I'm happy to be proved wrong, but I think that might be the end of what we're going to hear about that. I think that's done now, and in terms of a resolution, it doesn't feel very satisfying. I'm not going to lie. So we have an update on last week's Ding Dong portion. We have been told that the Italian mayor has defended the Florida principal who has been forced out over showing students the statue of David, because apparently a marble penis is just far too much for any child to have to see. And I did get a comment talking about the argument being made that it's about parents having ultimate authority, I guess, over their children. As a parent of a 2-year-old who is thus very reliant on me, I don't have absolute authority, because guess what? Children are people, and they have their own thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So I do think that's a bit odd, because they don't have ultimate authority, because children are people. We have the Florence mayor has tweeted, quote, a Florida teacher was forced to quit for showing students photos of Michelangelo's David. Mistaking art for pornography is just ridiculous. I have to say I agree. They went on, I will personally invite the teacher to Florence to give her recognition on behalf of the city. Art is civilization, and whoever teaches it deserves respect. The head teacher has come out and said that she feels very honoured by the invitation to Italy. The Florence Museum that houses the statue has also invited parents and students from the charter school to visit, amid shock amongst Italians over the US controversy. Quote, to think David could be pornographic means truly not understanding the content of the Bible. Fair. Not understanding Western culture and not understanding Renaissance art, said Cecile Holberg, director of the Galleria dell'Accademia. So that is, of course, not. I remember a phase, and it's possibly still going on, of people Googling Florida man and like their birthday and stuff would come up. I, as a Brit, don't fully understand, but is that a thing? is the Florida is the Florida man thing a thing? Because I'm putting the next article as an update because it connects to further complaints about the teaching of, as I see it, history. And this is a North Shore elementary teacher, parent who has complained that their child, who's in the second grade, I'm going to be honest, I don't know how old that is. I'm guessing as it's only number 2 grade, it's going to be small. 7, 8. I mean, I barely know what grades are here. So they are upset that second graders are watching a film about Ruby Bridges. They claim that it might teach students that white people hate black people. I mean, in the context of the story of Ruby Bridges, that's a fair assessment. So this film was shown on March 2nd to about 60 second graders. 4 days later, one of the parents who'd chosen not to have their child watch the film filed a formal objection with the district. I'm assuming if they'd opted not to have their child watch the film, they didn't see it. So they're filing an objection about other people's children watching it. Is this what am I misunderstanding this? Anyway, they have filed a formal objection with the district. They said that there were racial slurs in the movie. That's understandable. They thought they were inappropriate for second graders to hear, including the N-word. That was a word that I guess would be in there. They also list a scene where adults scream. I'm not going to say this out loud because I don't think YouTube will like it, but it's a direct threat against the person's life. They said the movie was more appropriate for an 8th grade American history class. That potentially may be true. It does sound like pretty heavy content and it sounds like challenging material. What I will say is in second grade at age 7 or 8, is it the case that parents who have children of color get to ignore this material and this content? Are there children who absolutely know, because sadly for some it's still their lived experience, and I'm by no means saying that this is specific to the United States, because there is a race problem here too, absolutely. And I just wonder if being in the second grade and having the capacity and the space to not hear those words and to not know they exist, my argument would be that potentially comes from a place of privilege, because your child is not going to hear them, and they won't hear them in their everyday life. And US Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is also a representative for Florida, called the situation an example of the state trying to erase history. Quote, "How can it be that a black child once needed police escorts to attend class, yet students today must be shielded from the truth?" I've got some comments about this, because obviously this is these events, both of these events, the thing with David, the statue of David, and this issue about the Ruby Bridges film, it's coming from a place and a context that isn't my lived experience. So I'm interested to know what people's thoughts are this. So this movie is actually something the state has been okayed for decades. So it's been showed to students for decades. Okay, that's interesting. So there is previous context of this being presented. The parent watched part of it, objected to it being shown, even they didn't let their own child watch it in school. That's what the article seems to say to me. If I've misunderstood, I would be happy for that to be clarified. It's inappropriate for young students to hear racial slurs. Someone should have told the parents yelling at Ruby Bridges. I can't disagree with any of that. Hadrian, you were in 4th grade when it came out. So this is for second graders. So 4th grade is 2 higher. If these are 8-year-olds, that makes you 11 to 12. 12? No, 8, 9. I'm bad at maths. So it had a big impact on you. Second grade might be young to just really grasp what's going on, but I don't think it's very young. I think that's actually that's a very good point, that actually they perhaps don't get the full ramifications of it at that age. They can't potentially fully contextualize it. I don't have a second grader. I don't know how good they'd be at understanding that. And you kind of want the understanding. Um, you want them to kind of really have that empathy chip switched on. And I don't know when children fully get the empathy chip switched on. I mean, arguably 25, but we we will have to see. People don't get to ignore the color of their skin. It should be taught even early. The movie is tough to watch even for me as an adult. I've never seen I've seen clips from this movie. I'm aware of the one that this movie is. I'm pretty sure I've seen clips. It's a very hard watch. I think Hadrian makes a good point. Is second grade too young for it to be as valuable as it might be if you were in fourth grade? Oh, the film is rated PG. I mean, in some ways, I'm kind of considering the language they say it's in it, that in some ways is quite shocking. I wonder if it's because it's factual. Interesting. My only concern is, will second graders understand what's happening? Yes, and I also think it's going to require a lot of explanation and discussion for it to be valuable. Maybe that I would have that question, and then we potentially get into this issue that parents are opposing the teaching of critical race theory. Uh, Again, that's those sorts of conversations happening here, that empire guilt shouldn't be taught, etc. They did proxemia. If authorities could harass and yell at an 8-year-old, why can't an 8-year-old see it today? That's again a very good question. Oh, they're showing it second graders because Ruby was in the second grade when this happened. Okay, so that's how old a second grader is. Oh wowie wow. Oh wowie wow. Um, Parents should watch it with their children. I think there's a lot of things that's um yeah, that's a good point. Um, Pretty Pick had a Ruby Bridges picture book, like preschool age. I think it's a story that needs telling. My son's got a picture book that includes Rosa Parks. It includes all sorts of heroes from abolition, and that's for a little boy, very little boy. Yvonne, in my experience as a teacher, I think the children have the same emotions as adults, but they don't have the tools to deal with those emotions. Yes, I suppose in the context is, at what age do you teach it, and why, or is it something you constantly kind of discuss? I mean, we did it in my school. I know we did World War II at various times, and the full context of the horrors and atrocities were brought up at various points. And so it was covered at numerous ages. So yes. EB, not sure the parents are arguing age appropriateness, whatever they say. I mean, they are very young. They are very young to be hearing it. There might be a concern they might repeat it. Children are little sponges, and they do say, and that's as a parent, that would be a word that would make my blood run cold if my child ever said it. So I can almost understand that you want them to be old enough to know they're never to say that word. But 6? Is that you can tell them not to say stuff, right? I guess. Oh, it's been a big jump. it's never too soon to teach children compassion. I completely agree. I completely agree. Um, as a person of color, it's always been a story that you're telling, whether I was in the UK or the US, and we talked about these stories and what happened and why. It gave context, not hate. I these these stories. It's and there is definitely a case that we like heroes and villains when we teach history to children. We certainly do. We people are often quite shocked in Britain when it's pointed out that it wasn't just Germany in the 1930s that was eugenicist and anti-Semitic. That was far more widespread, and it's not just America that was doing slavery or segregation. That these are issues and conversations that are happening all over the place, and they still need to be taught. Uh, I don't even know if I don't even know if it's. I think it's guilt washing, guilt rinsing. That there's such a kind of desire to not feel. There's the fear of feeling somebody might feel culpable, and I wonder why there's a fear about that. Means that it shouldn't be taught. Oh yeah, I mean, my grandfather was showing me picture books of World War II before I started school. So I know that I'm not in a place to comment because I have a warped impression of what children are capable of dealing with because I was seeing photographs from the camps in books before I was 4. So I'm aware that I'm not the best person to know what's appropriate for children. Um, I agree with parental rights about certain things that children are taught, but that history is curriculum. And while history is definitely open to interpretation, it's not that much of a feelings-based exercise. And this is history. It's literally on videotape. Um, Thank you, Jarrod. My grandpa was cool. He is the reason that I love history. He's also the reason, probably probably that I've needed the amount of therapy that I've needed because the stories he used to tell me were about the executions of Henry's wives and Nazis. So it's been a time. I'm not gonna lie to you. Um, I'm gonna hop on to the next story because, as I said, we have got a lot to cover. But I do think this is a really um, it's definitely a story that I'm going to be following. It's certainly not the period of history that I teach. It's and thus I don't speak from a position of expertise, and I'm not somebody who can teach critical race theory by any means. But I think that it's a very clear part of history, and that children have a right to, when they come to have those conversations in the future as adults, they have a right to have information at their fingertips. I think we talk a lot about cultural capital and the way in which giving children cultural capital allows them to fluidly move between groups and gives them the best opportunities to flourish in life. Those groups, it doesn't just have to be about the cultural capital of taking children to the opera so they fit in with privately educated kids who've been to the opera. It also means about moving fluidly in all conversations, even hard conversations about race and gender and sexuality, and not being defensive at the first instance. So um those conversations I think are I think that kids are owed it, actually, particularly so that they can have flourishing relationships and conversations with their peers in the future. I think denying children that is really unfair. All children. So we are going to hop on to our next update. And that is about the Bruegel work that was found in a dim French TV room. It has gone up for auction. It was auctioned in Paris on a Tuesday, week before last, I believe. And it went for 780,000 euros, which is roughly equivalent to $845,000. This 17th century oil painting, which experts are calling exceptional because it was considered to be a fake by its owners, was discovered by chance in December. Somebody from the auction house said, quote, "I arrived in a small television room that was not very well lit. I started making my estimates in the living room, and turning around behind the door, there were 2/3 of the painting visible. And that's when, in fact, I discovered the painting. It was a bit of a surprise, I can only imagine." This is the painting that's that village lawyer that I think is just fabulous because it's just so chaotic. You've got somebody coming in with a chicken and eggs, and we're told that it measures 112 centimeters high by 184 centimeters wide. So it's going to need a lot of wall for that. We are told by the auction house person that the discovery, quote, "was the biggest moment of my career. But of course, I was cautious. We don't want people going down the road to finding a piece of writing at an archaeological dig and being like, the oldest thing. Can't be doing that again." It is, after all, rather rare to find a Bruegel hanging in a television room. You can say that again. This piece, though, we don't know who bought it. It's an unnamed Swiss buyer. So let's see if it ends up being in a museum for us to see, but it doesn't seem to have been bought by a museum. Of course, it could be borrowed or loaned to one. Next update, this is about the trash dump upon which this naked Venus statue was found that we talked about last week. Also found on the site, we can see some other images. So we have here small objects, including coins, a metal clasp, and an antique glass. And some antique glass. The INRAP archaeologists who worked on this site discovered numerous fragments of pots and plates, a few coins, some clothing pins, as well as several terracotta statues, including 2 depicting the Venus in different roles. So we have one Venus, this naked Venus, but beneath it, we also have a fragment of a different Venus statue where she's depicted as the mother goddess. So presumably there's more stuff that might come out of this trash heap. I'm assuming they're going to keep working on this site to see more stuff. I want to know your thoughts on this one because I have mixed feeling, and I put this in updates because it to me chimes and connects with them trying to remake animals that we've been talking about over the last few weeks. They are seemingly have made a meatball with woolly mammoth DNA that's been unveiled by a culture meat startup. So the meatball is made of sheep cells inserted with mammoth gene myoglobin, with apparently a soupçon of elephant DNA. Why? Why? I understand lab-grown meat. Why you go for woolly mammoth first feels like a flex, particularly as we're told the protein is literally 4,000 years old. We haven't seen it for a very long time. That means we want to put it through rigorous tests, something that we do with any product before we bring it to the market. So currently it's not edible because people haven't been able to eat woolly mammoth for 4,000 years. So we don't know the effect it might have on human beings. That being said, cultivated meat could be the answer to a lot of issues with environmental impact of the mass production of meat. I wonder what, because obviously there are lots of people who are vegetarian or vegan for ethical reasons. Some, of course, it's because of taste or texture. Would we then have a glut of vegetarians and vegans who would potentially eat this cultured meat? And if they do so, particularly if they haven't eaten it for a while, I've heard cases where people who haven't eaten meat for a while can get quite poorly. So I'm quite interested by what's going on. Um, oh no, the meaty strategy again. Well, the thing is, no animals were harmed in the. Maybe no animals were harmed in the creation of this meatball. I don't know if they were. Uh, it's uh, This is another question. I don't know how they do this. I I don't know. Um, so there is apparently a hope to put cultured meat on the map in the European Union, a market where such meat as food is not regulated yet. The EU has some of the toughest food legislations. So if it's not regulated yet, that's not the flex you think it is. This is not going to be the Wild West. If you try and do this, mate, they are going to come down on you like a ton of bricks. I don't know how they've done this. I don't. I have feelings, and I'm not sure what they are. Um, uh, Michael, I don't think this is a product for vegetarians and vegans. It's a product for people looking for the novelty. Oh, absolutely. I can definitely see that. But the question is, would a vegetarian or vegan eat it? It does. Do you know what it feels like a bit to me? It feels a little bit like the old-fashioned glutton club, where they were like, "We're going to find all the animals," and part of finding them is also eating them. So there is a part of me that wonders what's going on. Um, let's see. Okay, so we've got some vegetarians weighing in. Let me have a look. You're vegetarian since I was 12, so you're good on that. I'm taking that's a no from you. Anna babe, you're opting out. Fair. I understand. Vegan, you wouldn't eat it. The taste is. We don't know how it smells, Suzanne. We don't. I mean, if they're splicing in sheep, woolly mammoth, and elephant, they could make it smell like ant farts for all we know. Um, Pretty big. One animal was harmed in the meatball creation. Us humans was. You're perhaps not wrong. You're perhaps not wrong. We don't know how it smells. They had this as an episode of Northern Exposure. I'm going to need to look into what that is. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Thank you though. What's the best sauce for a mammoth meatball? A mammoth, not even a mammoth. What's the best sauce for a mammoth ball? What are you doing in the privacy of your own bedchamber? Oh boy. Omnivore who passes on this. See, look, right. I'm not gonna. Do you know what? I'm not gonna lie. If somebody was like, "Do you want to eat a mammoth meatball? Do you want to eat a bit?" and they could say it's safe enough, I'd probably give it a go. Am I gonna have it every week? No, but I will eat weird food. I will. Maybe not more than once, but I will try it. So I don't know if I would. I have feelings, but I don't know what they are. I don't know what they are. Vegetarians lose the ability to properly digest meat, but would that extend to fake meat? Is it fake meat? Oh, it's Schrodinger's meatball. That she said. Okay. All right. Do you know what? We're gonna hop on because I'm only gonna get more vulgar. So I'm going to now, Jessie, you've brought up Rocky Mountain oysters, which I think are testicles. Another couple of years, we'll get Scotch eggs with dodo eggs and a mammoth meat. We absolutely will, and that's disturbing. Gracie, it's my favourite phrase. They just because you can, it doesn't mean you should. And I feel like on one hand that's the mammoth meatball, but on the other hand, I think put it on some spaghetti. I'll give it a go. I need help. Right, we're going to jump on to the next thing, and we are going straight into the repatriation section of our video today. And we have this video, which is linked in the upper pin board, and it is the delightful Matthew Bogdanos, who works with our hero, DA Alvin Bragg. He is the assistant district attorney, and he is fabulous. And I really enjoyed watching this video. So thank you to the few people who sent me this. So please do check it out. And I think that's a good video. He talks all about his detective skills and his prosecutorial powers to target those who traffic and trade in stolen art and antiquities. And he is, of course, one of our very favourites, is he not? And of course, his office, we've got another update from the work they've been up to, and that is they have returned 29 antiquities to Greece. Included in that is a bronze calyx crater, which dates to 350 BCE. This once held the bones of a deceased individual in a chamber tomb. It was looted and smuggled into Switzerland, where it then, of course, later made its way into the collection of Leon and Shelby White. Those are some names we recognise. It was seized by the DA's office in January of this year. Also seized the Eid Mar coin, which there's a picture of right there, and the next to it, the bronze calyx crater is the thing on your left as you're looking at it. I can't tell my left from my right all the time. Ring hand. Left. The Eid Mar coin was also, this comes from 42 BCE, commemorates the murder of Julius Caesar. They were minted to pay Brutus's troops. The coin first serviced in the international market in 2016, offered for sale in Munich with no provenance. Ding, 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 problem. Smuggled to London, where it was sold to a US-based buyer, seized by the office in February of this year. Don't know whom the buyer is. And then we've also got down at the bottom a Neolithic family group, which dates to between 5,000 to 3,500 BCE, valued at $3 million, friends. It was once again in the collection of Leon Levy and Shelby White. White loaned the collection to, you guessed it, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in 2000, where it was on display. The collection was on display until March of this year, when it was seized by the office. Devi, I think you were talking about Matthew Bogdanos. Wouldn't kick him out of the bedchamber. Same girl, same. I can see why you would feel that way. He's a very attractive man, and he looks lovely in uniform. We're still, that's the meat things. I was talking about something the Catholic Church popped up. I was like, hang on, we've not got to them yet. More repatriations. This is the big one, bumper month. 83 ancient Mexican artifacts have been returned from Italy, Germany, and France. So we've got a pre-Hispanic carving of a bird, which has been returned by German authorities to the Mexican government. We have got this little crying dude, recovered by German authorities. And then the three on the right, needle on my left from my right, the three on the right, they are from Italy. Italy's returned apparently at least 70 pre-Hispanic artifacts that have been confiscated in its nation in less than a year. They went back in July. We are told the Mexican government is now targeting the return of 83 Olmec artifacts from France that are set to be sold at a private auction on April 3rd. Frausto has slammed the auction of these prehistoric pieces at the press event. She challenged people who would buy such artifacts to appreciate the work being made by modern artisans throughout Mexico. Quote, they are put up for sale as if they were a luxury item to decorate a house, as if they were merchandise. This is not only illegal, but also immoral. We call for potential buyers to set their eyes on the art in towns today. There are extraordinary pieces that may be adorning the most luxurious houses in the world. Contemporary art in Mexico is also a power. Visit and see this art that's being created right now. Fabulous. The report is that the total of 11,505 pieces have been repatriated under President Lopez Obrador's government. Good. I agree. Do you know what? This art is still being created. If you want Mexican art, go and support a modern artist. Next up, we're back to the Met, and that name rings a bell. Subhash Kapoor. Met sends artifacts linked to the dealer Subhash Kapoor back to India. The Met is going to return 15 antiquities back to India. It's a group of terracotta and stone sculptures that will be leaving the Met's collection. They depict ancient Indian deities and date from between the 1st century BCE to the 11th century CE. Each object passed through the hands of former art dealer Subhash Kapoor, who was charged with illegally exporting religious artifacts by New York authorities in 2019. It's the latest mass return of items linked to Kapoor since the charges were brought against him. In August 2022, the Yale University Art Gallery returned 12 artifacts linked to Kapoor's affiliates in India and Burma. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to put it out there. At this point, you know, if you are an institution that had dealings with Subhash Kapoor, you know, it is now the time to look at all of the things. It's recent enough that there should be documentation. We are talking about the 21st century. This is at the very least noted down, almost certainly computerized with the name of dealer. You know which pieces are which when they connect to him. You know where they are, and if you don't, then your cataloging system is and you need some help. Now is the time to volunteer as tribute. Now is the time. You know what's happening. Some people don't learn, throw them in jail, just don't do a fine. Yeah, I think there's certainly for some of them, particularly the ones who are collectors rather than dealers, their wealth is insulating them. They are forced to give up their shiny things, but they aren't. In most cases, the very, very rich ones don't seem to be doing any jail time. It's the art dealers of the world that are doing that jail time. Although perhaps, if this is anything to go by, we may be seeing a reason why this sort of stuff is going to stop happening. This is from ProPublica. Again, fabulous article. Really recommend checking it out. I think the writing of ProPublica is just spectacular. A rare statue of Buddha fails to sell at auction as questions swirl around a renowned art collection. What happened may be a sign that objects from the collection of James and Marilyn Alsdorf will have trouble finding buyers following questions about how they were acquired. Oh no, if it's not the consequences of your actions. This piece from Nepal was once displayed at the Art Institute of Chicago. A statue of Buddha that was up for sale at Christie's auction house was, according to art experts, an early test. Would recent controversy around objects once owned by two prominent Chicago collectors hinder its sale and send a signal about how the art market views the renowned collection? Maybe it's going to send us a signal about how the art market is finally viewing goods that look likely to have been looted. This is a 7.25-inch copper alloy Buddha from 9th century Nepal. It was estimated that it would fetch between $60,000 to $80,000. And we have a quote from Erin Thompson, who I have mentioned before. Follow them on Twitter. They are fabulous. Quote, nobody wants to buy trouble. Why would you buy someone else's stolen cultural property? Well, Erin, that is an excellent question that when I do this once a week, I also ask myself. Although Christie's auction was a single sale of a single object, art experts said it was telling nonetheless. The rare Buddha had been in the collection of James and Marion Alsdorf, whose massive art holdings focused on pieces from Nepal and other parts of South and Southeast Asia. A Christie's spokesperson says 63% of the auction's 124 lots found buyers. So I'm assuming that, at least to some degree, their bills have been paid. So, but maybe the little hopeful bean in me says that perhaps this is the worm turning and people don't want to do this anymore. We can but hope, or at least maybe it's just the case that it will do it publicly. The real problem, the concern I have is that if this becomes unfashionable, what does the black market look like? The black market look like in this sort of stuff? Who's involved? Where's it happening? What other stuff is that going to be funding? I don't know. We have another repatriation. Cambridge University's Fitzwilliam Museum has surrendered a 19th century painting to the family of the original Jewish owner who was persecuted by the Nazis. In a report published on Thursday, it was concluded that the evidence supported the restitution claim made by one of the heirs of the one-time owner, Robert Bing, a French resistance hero during World War II. Quote, "This is a deliberate seizure by the German authorities from a Jewish citizen of France with the diversion of the work of art to Nazi leaders. No other reason for seizure other than the Jewishness of Mr. Bing has appeared to explain this seizure." It added the museum had, quote, "cared for the work so that it can now be restored to the heirs of the original owners." A spokesperson for the Fitzwilliam Museum said it will follow the advice. So this is a museum in Eastern England, and it's acting on the advice of a government-appointed expert panel, which investigates claims for Nazi loot. We should talk about the fact that there's a ton of works of art that are due to be repatriated to Jewish families. You live in Austria and you can still see them all over gallery walls. Thank you for that, Michael. Follow-up question. In the display of them in Austria, is it noted in the... I forgot the word description for a second there. Wow. Is it noted in the description of the piece on the wall or in the catalogue that they belong to these families, or is that not raised? And is there a plan in place? What's the situation? I'm definitely going to look into this further. Thank you. This is I've classed this as repatriation because I feel like it fits, because I feel like this, mostly because I feel like this change in the tide of this conversation is happening against the backdrop of repatriation and decolonization. I think those two things, I wonder if I should actually change the title of this section away from repatriations to repatriations and decolonization, or something along the lines. We have a change of opinion, a change of heart from the Vatican. The Vatican on Thursday responded to Indigenous demands and formally repudiated the so-called doctrine of discovery. This was theories that were backed by 15th century papal bulls that legitimised the colonial era seizure of native land, and which form the basis of some property laws today. A Vatican statement said the papal bulls or decrees, quote, "did not adequately reflect the equal dignity and rights of Indigenous peoples." Felix Hone, a property and administrative law professor at the University of Saskatchewan, said the Vatican statement would have no legal bearing on land claims in Canada today, but it would have symbolic value. Quote, "The most that any papal, pardon me, sorry, the most that any papal repudiation of the doctrine, or the bulls for that matter, can do in relation to Canadian law is to apply pressure on the Supreme Court of Canada to renounce the doctrine as part of Canadian law." Beyond that, though, is the hope that the statement could show that the Catholic Church wants to be an ally with Indigenous people as they fight for their human rights and their land and to protect it, said the Reverend David McCullum, an American Jesuit who has worked with Indigenous peoples in the Syracuse area, and who was consulted during the drafting of the statement. Quote, So now for the church to acknowledge not only the damage, but also to repudiate the whole mindset of cultural superiority, of racial superiority, to, in a sense, renounce the whole way of thinking and say that forever forward, the church wants to be an active ally in protecting Indigenous human rights, along with all human rights. I think it's a big statement. It's a statement that it was wrong, rightly so. A fitting doctrine of discovery. Let's discover how much we can take and justify doing so. Yes, a lot of damage done. We have the Tennessee Valley Authority is preparing to return the remains of over 4,800 Native American individuals. This is a minimum of 4,871 individuals of Native American ancestry. Additionally, 1,386 associated funerary objects that are set to be repatriated beginning on April 28th, 2023, so later this month that's just started. We have a list of things that are included: lithics, ceramics, bone tools, minerals, botanical remains, shells, beads, gorgets and hairpins, canine remains, and copper. And we then, next to it, have a list of where these remains were found. So we've got what's been found in Alabama, Kentucky, eastern half of Tennessee, western half of Tennessee, and also the potential tribes that might be connected to that. And so let's see what happens at the end of this month and what happens next. I guess I will, of course, be keeping an eye on that. We have this: Native American activists prevent the auction of a 600-year-old Indigenous skull in North Carolina. Thank goodness. Advocates for the preservation of Native American heritage successfully presented the sale of this skull at an auction house in North Carolina. It was listed as Lot 243 and described as, quote, completely original, missing some teeth. It also said this item is not covered by the Native American Grave Protection and Repatriation Act, as it was found prior to 1981. The Indigenous advocate, Crystal Cavalier Keck, said, I think it's disgusting that the owner of this art auction house is selling off bones of a Native American person. Would you want someone selling your ancestors' bones? No, Crystal, I absolutely wouldn't. After Cavalier Keck posted about the auction on TikTok, approximately 25 protesters from several different tribal groups showed up to the auction house on March 25th. Cavalier Keck ended up successfully bidding $220 on a Lakota Nation ghost dance regalia to prevent it from being purchased by someone who is not from that culture and thus have culturally appropriated. An attorney for the American Indian Saponi tribe emailed the auction house during the Fine American and American Antiques event, demanding an immediate stop of the sale of the skull. Quote, the tribe believes Mebane Antique Auction Gallery's possession of these remains is unlawful and any sale of these remains is illegal. John Lambert, boo hiss, who is the owner of the auction house, eventually pulled the skull from the event. He called the protesters sad and told the News Observer they were, quote, trying to get attention for not trying to speak with him prior to the auction about their concerns. The only reason I took it out of the sale yesterday is to satisfy these crazies. John Lambert gives me the rage, is what I'm going to say. Owner Lee Walker doubted the likelihood of the skull being a replica. So he said essentially he took it out to satisfy the crazies, and that he thought that the skull might not be authentic. Owner Lee Walker doubted the likelihood of the skull being a replica. Walker also told the News and Observer that he and his wife planned on working with tribal members to repatriate the remains after learning about their concerns during the auction. Babe, no. I have no problem working with anyone looking to repatriate it wherever it should be. If you're at your big age, if you're old enough to be reaching out to an auction house, the second I don't words. The second you start looking into auction off Native American skulls, there is no way that your first search result is going to be auction house that will do that. I don't believe that. Your first search results will be news articles about how heinous it is to do something like this. So, Lee Walker, you weren't like, what? I didn't know it to be a problem. You must have Googled the auction house. You must have done. And when you did so, whatever you tried to Google, that would have told you that this needs to go back to the people who claim this person as their ancestor. And if you don't know who it is, you would also there's enough articles about how the FBI can help with that because they've already been doing it. So gives me the rage. John is not getting the love. Repatriate John Lambert to the trash pile. I approve that message. Yes. Anyone can run a 2-bit auction house doesn't mean he's educated or professional. It doesn't, but my goodness, he's still doing it. He's still doing it, and he gives me the rage. It is the short version of what I said. Yes, when you Google that, how to auction skull, take off Native American, just take that off. Auction house for skull, or how to auction skull. Red flags all the way. The FBI has been using DNA to try to potentially connect, or they've been doing lots of different things to try to potentially connect looted and stolen remains with the tribal communities for which those individuals are ancestors or may potentially be ancestors. So I don't know where Lee and his, no doubt, delightful household kept the skull of a living human being, once living human being. I have no idea. But trash bag. Final repatriation. This week's given me the real rage. I apologise. I try to be professional, but sometimes it takes all of my self-control not to just go on an expletive-laden rant. Final repatriation. Archaeologists from the University of Leiden have repatriated human remains to St. Eustatius. This is representatives from the Faculty of Archaeologists who travelled to this Caribbean island to repatriate the human remains that were originally excavated in the 1980s. These were during archaeological excavations that were conducted by the Leiden archaeologist Ard Veerstag in the 1980s. And it was of the remains of 9 indigenous individuals. They were shipped to the Netherlands for further study and led to a 1992 publication entitled The Archaeology of St. Eustatius, the Golden Rock. The materials were then stored in the faculty's depot after that. There was a request for repatriation submitted by the government of St. Eustatius. And we are told when the formal request was sent to us via the Dutch Heritage Agency, we happily agreed to send it all back. Now, a lot of people say, I see a lot of museums say, if we get a request, we will look into it. And I think that might feel weird, like, well, offer it. But at the same time, extending the offer of repatriation can potentially be a bit of a double-edged sword if you are giving it back to somewhere that hasn't asked for it and hasn't prepared for that. So I see why waiting for the request is the dumb thing. And I don't necessarily believe that is museums dragging their heels. Of course, it could be, but I don't think it necessarily is. Jason Laffoon is the head of the Department of Archaeological Sciences. Together with management assistant Arthur Van Giel, he travelled to San Eustatius to bring the human remains home. They will be reinterred. We are told that the Archaeological Society on the island was very welcoming and friendly, and the rest of the materials are going to be shipped by shipping container later that year and then stored in a depot on the island. Doctoral College Debs, says, I just don't understand how anyone thinks the keeping human remains for study purposes is okay. Where are their ethics approval for that? Look, in my studies, I didn't have to go through ethics, but I had lots of friends who were doing doctoral studies at the same time as me who had participant observation, who were working on topics in things like social work or psychiatry or psychology, who had participant, or anthropology for that matter, who had participant observation. And there were ethics forms and rigorous controls about ethics and oversight committees the length of your arm. So I honestly, in answer to your question, have zero idea how this stuff is flying. Zero clue how this is flying. Not a sausage. I don't like it. We are now, friends, going to hop on to the new news, and hopefully, I can hear my pulse in my ears. This is not good for my blood pressure. I'm going to skip to the loo, my darling, and hop into the new news in the hopes that my blood pressure drops down. Justine, when you were in the in England in the 1990s, you went to Roman ruins. We do have some lovely Roman ruins. As a nation that was invaded, we have some lovely Roman ruins to check out, and Roman roads and mosaics, etc. And then, of course, we were invaded again by the Normans, who then eventually gave way to the Plantagenet dynasty, for whom we got many of our castles from. So lots of the archaeology and things you can visit in this country is because we've been invaded twice. I also worry for my blood pressure. Need to chill out. Very hard. They are testing me. They are. This is. It's like it's been sent to try me. Right. Next set. Okay. New news. Let's shake it off. Let's shake it off. The oldest remains of a large sea reptile have been found on a Norwegian island. This is a vertebrae from an ichthyosaur of the kind, I believe, found by Mary Anning. The 11-tailed vertebrae show that the animal was about 3 meters long, making it one of the period's top predators. The lead writer of the research paper, Benjamin Kerr, said that he was surprised that the vertebra came from a fully oceanic ichthyosaur. He went on to say that the discovery changes the researcher's sense of when animals transition from land to water. He thinks those relatives lived before the eruption that killed many of the Earth's animals. It survived and continued living during the time of the dinosaurs, which came later. The ichthyosaurs, we know, we look like dolphins or whales. Some could get up to about 21 meters long. And the thought process is that in finding these remains, we might be getting closer to what they're calling the mysterious walking ichthyosaur. I'm not sure if that means a subaquatic, aquatic, why it would be a walking ichthyosaur. But the Keir, who is one of the researchers, says that he's excited to start looking. I can imagine that he is. He says now we'll have to start looking at even older rocks, which is exactly what we'll be doing on our next fossil hunting trip to Spitsbergen this summer. So we could have some fun news coming up in the autumn. Yvonne, can they make a meatball from this? Well, it would be a fishball. And no fossil bone. Surely not enough DNA. Surely no DNA. Maybe no. Do you know what? At this point, I might have to draw a line. But talking about stuff, Loch Ness Nessie was supposed to be an ichthyosaur. However, we talked about weird Scotch eggs earlier on when we were talking about the giant meatball. Could this be the way it's going? A rock containing a stunning agate turned out to be a 60 million year old dinosaur egg. I swear, if anybody makes this into a Scotch egg, I'm leaving Earth. Back in 1883, this was found and given to the Natural History Museum in London into their mineralogy collection. Misplaced, as it turns out. While I was looking around the show, a dealer showed me an agatized dinosaur egg, which was spherical, had a thin rind and dark agate in the middle. That was a light bulb moment when I thought, hang on a minute, that looks a lot like the one we just put on display in the Natural History Museum, which happened in 2018. This mineral was then inspected by the dinosaur experts at the museum, who ran a CT scan and then to see what clues they could unveil. The density meant the CT scan couldn't pick out any final details, but they did agree that the thin layer around the agate looks like a shell, and they also found that the outside of the specimen suggested that more than one object had been gathered together. I do not want a dinosaur Scotch egg. However, we have more. The picture of it is pretty cool. The specimen was collected in India, and the size, shape, and surface features are the same as other specimens of titanosaur eggs. So it's a big boy. It's thought this dates back 60 million years, and this specimen is a perfect example about why museum collections are so important. It was identified and catalogued correctly as an agate in 1883 using the scientific knowledge available at the time. It's only now we recognise this specimen has something extra special. The agate has infilled this spherical structure, which turns out to be a dinosaur egg. They think this occurred due to volcanic activity that caused the egg to become encased in solidified volcanic rock after an eruption, which means that the internal structures would have eventually decomposed, and a silica-rich water could make its way into the egg, creating the banded agate specimen we see today. Justine has asked, what is a Scotch egg? Well, oh, that's my ding-dong bell. It's a delicacy in some parts that is it's an egg wrapped in sausage meat and breadcrumbs and then deep fried. Yum. I don't like eggs, dinosaur or otherwise. So the Scotch egg is not for me. Give me a pickle any day of the week. You work in a mineral shop and you carry agatized coral fossils. They are not edible. Look. I can get brave. No, don't. You'll break all of your teeth. You will break all of your teeth. The Scotch egg is normally a chicken egg, although I think people do use like quail eggs, goose eggs. Essentially, if you can cook it and wrap it in meat. Oh, Lord. We talk about British cuisine. That's why we're world leaders. We're so famous. Right. Next up, we're not done with dinosaurs because apparently T-Rex had lips, which I don't know how people feel about that. I wasn't aware that we didn't think they had lips. I wasn't sure what a dinosaur lip would look like. However, I now realise that I've always seen images of T-Rex with the teeth poking out. Turns out they think he had lips instead. And they point out, if we look back at artistic depictions of dinosaurs back into the 1920s and 30s, they did in fact always have lips. T-Rex not only had lips in the movie, it had them in real life millions of years ago. So rather than looking like a lizard, rather than looking like a crocodile where the teeth are exposed, it would have looked more like a lizard. So T-Rex, we are told, quote, had a gob that looked more like a Komodo dragon. I mean, it's still got teeth behind it that will bite your face off. We have some news about Stonehenge. Was it an ancient calendar? New study says no, it was not. Stonehenge was not a prehistoric solar calendar, but instead it said served mainly as a memorial to the dead. This is according to new research by scientists who study ancient astronomy. Archaeologists now think that Stonehenge's main purpose was as part of a prehistoric ceremonial landscape built in memory of ancestral dead. Excavations show that many different parts of the vast megalithic complex were used for burials for hundreds of years. We are told this might explain its alignment with the winter solstice, which seems to have been an important annual date relating to the dead in some prehistoric religions. But while the annual solstice alignment is evident, the relatively low number of stones and their imprecision meant that Stonehenge would have been too inaccurate to use as a calendar. However, not everybody agrees with that. Darville says the latest criticisms do not refute the suggestions that are made in his 2022 paper. Quote, what they say does not undermine the essential model of the Sarsen structures at Stonehenge being constructed as a manifestation of a perpetual solar calendar. Some archaeologists share the reservations of Magli and Belmonte and are unconvinced by Darville's idea. Max Levers, who is a consultant archaeologist at Wessex Archaeology here in the UK, has studied Stonehenge for decades, but wasn't involved in either one of these studies that are now fighting with each other. And he says, quote, all this really shows is how easy it is to read calendrical divisions into Stonehenge architecture and how unprovable any of it is. So that's what he said. Now, next up, I am just checking. There are bones. I don't believe these. I'm double checking. I have a question. This is possibly human remains. I think now I'm looking at it close up. I didn't think it was. I thought it was because it's talking about tools for bleeding cows that have been uncovered in a 7,000-year-old cemetery. And now I'm looking at it big because my eyesight, I need to go and see an optician. Now I'm looking at it. I'm pretty sure that in the picture I've got here, it's showing a skull in the picture I've got and possibly human bones. So I'm going to tell you what the article says. You can link to it, and I'm going to skip it because I'm pretty sure, got human remains. Archaeologists from the Polish Academy of Sciences have uncovered bone tools used for bleeding cows during excavations in northern Sudan. They have, this study was, I'm going to make myself big because I'm talking about it, not this. This study was conducted by researchers from the Institute of Archaeology and Ethnology from the Polish Academy of Sciences. They are researching early communities that dealt with cattle breeding in the Middle Nile Valley. They found 7,000-year-old burials with one burial pit containing the remains of an elderly man. I think that's what the photograph showed, but I didn't see it clearly enough. So that's why we're having this chat without images, because as I'm sure I've said many times, I don't show human remains on this channel. In the burial pit, they also found a small bowl with traces of ochre and 5 bone blades. A scientist working on the project said, quote, given the characteristic shape of the blades, they could have been used to bleed cows, similar to modern African shepherds such as the Maasai. Without any harm to the animals, cow's blood is drunk on special occasions, usually mixed with milk. If so, though, this would be the oldest known record of this type of practice. Now, I'm not showing this page for the reasons I've just laid out, but of course it is linked in the description box in the opera pinboard, so you can go and check it out if you should so choose. And next time I shall be more careful to make sure. Adrian, I have been talking about getting an eye test for weeks now. Make an appointment. Look, I'm going to be honest as well. I did not have a great time being pregnant or giving birth during a pandemic. And I'm going to be completely honest, it's given me a little bit of, well, not a little bit, a lot of trauma when it comes to medical settings. So I have avoided, I've managed to go to the dentist once since 2020 because being in the smell of anything remotely medical gives me the heebie-jeebies. So it's not necessarily a case of not finding the time. I'm being a chickeny coward because I'm scared. So let's hop into. We're going to add this to the stream. Add to stream, and there we go. So next article, how copper deposits turned a village into one of the most important trade hubs of the late Bronze Age. Researchers from the University of Gothenburg have uncovered evidence that highlights the significance of the Cypriot village of Hulla Sultan Teke during the late Bronze Age. They have found huge quantities of imported pottery. That was harder than it needed to be. They've also found luxury goods made of gold, silver, ivory, semi-precious gemstones, all of which shows that the city's production of copper was a trading commodity in high demand. And the images down the bottom, we have imported goods from Sardinia, Italy, Crete, Greece, Turkey, Israel, Egypt, Iraq. They've got a necklace with beads and a scarab from Egypt, so from the time of Ramses II. They've got goods from Afghanistan and India, and they've all been found at this one spot. And isn't that exciting? So let's hope we're going to find more cool stuff. Thanks for the support on the old medical trauma. I'm getting the help I need, and it will be okay. So I'll get there, and I'll go and have my eyes squeezed out. We have some more Bronze Age treasure found in Poland. It's a great picture here. This is a team from the Land Lovers Society. When I read that the first time, I couldn't help but pronounce landlubbers, and I got a little bit Somerset Puerty. Oh, you landlubber! This is the land lovers. So be serious. They've uncovered a small Bronze Age treasure in the commune of Zalwo, Poland. This was made during a metal detecting survey, revealing a collection of bronze artifacts that date from 2,500 years ago, which is around the end of the Bronze Age, going into the early Iron Age. This survey was conducted with the consent of Monument Protection Services and the landowners in accordance with local laws. They found an axe, which is the thingy at the bottom, or rather an axe head, and then also they found 2 bronze hoop ornaments that were either used as bracelets, armlets, or greaves. As there's no burial site associated, it's thought this was not deposited as grave goods, but instead might have been buried almost as a cache by the owner for security or potentially during a time of conflict. Determining which culture can be associated with the finds is, however, difficult. It's because there's a lack of artistry and typical type forms to compare it to. These finds have been described as a small treasure by the Provincial Office for the Protection of Monuments and have thus been transferred to the museum in Ostrada for further study. So we will no doubt check out and find out more stuff as that comes in. And if you're around, go see it when it goes on display. 3,000-year-old relics have been unearthed in Western Zhou dynasty tombs. We've got jade and other ancient relics excavated from 45 Western Zhou dynasty tombs in northwest China. This reveals details about the country's handicrafts nearly 3,000 years ago. Although they were made of bronze, the Yongzhei discovered in Baiji look similar to those made of jade. These are signs of a Duankao culture that are not only the cultural collections found at the site. A jade Kong with similar features to an object found at sites connected with Zhejiang Lingzhu's culture was also discovered. Kong, A tall rectangular jade that had a circular tube carved in it was used by ancient Chinese as part of religious ceremonies. The Ling Sao culture expanded northwards to meet the Duen Cao culture, and then it expanded further westwards. These tombs in Baoji were once a public cemetery for the Western Zhao people. The site has produced pottery remains of features similar to the pottery of the Taozi culture. Traditionally, scholars have believed that the Zhao culture originated in central or southern Inner Mongolia and then encountered the Taozi culture. That the Taozi culture inspired relics we discovered this time demonstrates this point. So essentially, it's backing up what they thought was going on. Cara, thank you very much for the super sticker. That's really kind of you. And I think you also have to shoot off. Well, I hope you have a chance to watch the rest of this later on. We are going, I always say to myself, I'm going to try and get this. I'm going to try and get this down to a reasonable time. And there we are. We are always going to be close to 2 hours. So I'm going to keep motoring. I got sent this one a lot. Ancient Egypt excavation has uncovered 2,000 mummified ram heads. They date from the Ptolemaic period, and a palatial Old Kingdom structure has also been uncovered at the temple of Ramses II. They have found mummified ewes, dogs, wild goats, cows, gazelles, and mongooses, all found in the temple alongside these ram heads. It's thought they are votive offerings, so ritual purposes, not a drinking game, that indicating the continuing reverence for Ramses II at the site about 1,000 years after his death. So these offerings at this site date from about 1,000 years after Ramses II died. It's been added that these discoveries would expand the knowledge of the site over a period of more than 2 millennia up to the Ptolemaic period. The Ptolemaic period spanned about 3 centuries until the Roman conquest of Egypt in 30 BC. There's a study in Egypt going on. There's a state-of-the-art 3D recording of the Temple of Isis that is letting researchers gain a further understanding of ancient graffiti, and especially in how it relates to modern graffiti. We have a quote. It's fascinating because there are similarities with today's graffiti. The iconic architecture of ancient Egypt was built by those in positions of power and wealth, but the graffiti recalls the voices and activities of everybody else. The building acts like a giant sponge or notepad. I love that visual. A giant sponge or notepad for generations of people from different cultures for over 2,000 years. According to Sabrina Higgins, a co-investigator on the project and archaeologist at SFU, photographs and two-dimensional plans fall short in capturing the dynamic, multi-layered and evolving nature of the field site. Hedley is taking a step beyond basic two-dimensional imaging by creating an advanced three-dimensional recording of the entire surface of the temple. This allows the temple's interior and exterior, along with the graffiti, to be viewed and analysed from virtually any angle without sacrificing detail. Although this technology is transformative in examining the temple and its inscriptions, Hedley believes that the potential for applying spatial reality capture extends beyond archaeology and could have a significant impact on various fields. Quote, though my primary role in this project is to help build the definitive set of digital wall plans for the Mamisi at Fili, I'm also demonstrating how emerging spatial reality capture methods can fundamentally change how we gather and produce data and transform our ability to interpret and analyze these spaces. And here's the other thing, the knock-on effect of that is if you can model this in 3D well enough for it to be researchable, then it can also find a consumer market in 3D glasses and looking you can put the goggles on and have, not called goggles, are they? But you can have a look around. So there we go. This one also has human remains that I have not shown here. A new study published in the journal Springer shows the severed right hands from 12 individuals which have been analysed osteologically, and they reveal the trophy-taking practices of ancient Egypt. These hands were discovered by archaeologists in 3 pits in northeastern Egypt, and the palace at which they were found dates from the 15th dynasty, which was from around 1640 to 1530 BCE. Although the practice of placing severed hands is documented in tomb inscriptions and temple reliefs from the New Kingdom onwards, this is the first example of an osteological analysis using physical evidence. Anatomical markers indicate that these hands are from at least 12 adults, belonging to 11 males and possibly to 1 female. Once the attached parts of the forearms were removed, the hands were deposited in the pits with the fingers wide splayed, primarily on their palm-facing sides. One way to amputate hands is to slice through the joint capsule. No one's eating, right? Don't eat right now. And then cut across the tendons that span the wrist joint. If done correctly, there will be no visible marks on the bone. However, if done unskillfully, cut marks may be present. According to this study, taphonomic and biological analyses carried out on the bones reveal information regarding the active mutilation and preparation of these body parts, as well as about the individuals to whom they originally belonged. While it's not possible to identify the particular ethnic or cultural group to which the hands belong, it's believed that the practice of severing the right hands of enemies was introduced to Egypt by the Hyksos roughly 50 to 80 years prior to the appearance of inscriptions and images depicting the practice, which makes sense. They're going to show it in pictures after it's already happened. The placement, handling, and potential arrangement of the amputated hands provide evidence against the theory that these actions were carried out as a punitive measure by law enforcement. When viewed through a transdisciplinary lens that considers archaeological and historical sources, the bioarchaeological data presented indicates that the severed hands were presented as prizes during a public event held at the palace. I'm just looking at the comments. I don't know if I can show those up. You're all terrible, and I'm definitely not laughing on the inside. We're going to hop away from Egypt and severed hands, and we're going to jump to Pompeii. A new archaeological initiative has turned up a cache of ancient cookware. The point is they are really hoping to avoid historical looting, in effect. The ancient city of Pompeii has long been celebrated as one of the richest archaeological sites of all time, and now the surrounding suburbs are getting their due attention. They have found 5 ceramic bowls upside down along the walls of a room that was likely part of the servants' quarters within a vast residential complex. 2 years ago, this site made headlines for the discovery of a stunning ceremonial chariot. I remember that well, the chariot that was found. This dig began in 2017, but attempts to unearth the secrets of the Civita Juliana have long been impeded by looters who target the site as its more remote location left it relatively unprotected. Quote, in a territory so rich in history and yet so abused, which still hides important traces of the past, as the discoveries of recent years have shown, it is essential that the protection of cultural heritage and legality go hand in hand. So this work has required the closure of a modern road running through the site, which had already been made structurally vulnerable by the elaborate network of underground tunnels that was been made and used by looters. The Civita Juliana Villa will become part of the wider Pompeii system and will eventually welcome tourists. Quote, these finds demonstrate the commitment and ability of the state to stem the scourge of clandestine excavations and the trade in archaeological goods. This is from Italy's Minister of Culture. Pompeii is the pride of Italy and it is our intention to further defend and promote a heritage that is unique worldwide. Were these beetles once as valuable as gemstones? Excellent question. These are green fig eater beetles. The discovery of 2,000-year-old iridescent green fig eater beetle jewellery at two sites at Bears Ears National Monument in southeastern Utah might help solve a long-standing historical mystery. These beetles are made into the most fabulous jewellery. So we have here, this is being made from tiny beetle femora, which is the insect's thick, hollow legs. Quote, these items of adornment would function very similar to gold and function very similar to copper. They would have been hard to produce. It would take, obviously, a lot of time to rip off those legs from the beetles. If anyone is eating, please stop. And that time could be better spent caring for your kids or farming. They would have been similar to gold and other shiny things in that someone seeing the wearer would instantly know their status because of the iridescence and the shimmer and the shine. According to archaeologist William D. Lipp, a professor emeritus at Washington State University, he agrees that the iridescent beetle adornments from Bears Ears were prestige goods and status symbols. He says, however, they are these artifacts which date to the between 70 to 60 BCE are by no means the first one to be associated with Basket Maker II society. Quote, in the 1890s, multiple expeditions dug in the dry caves like Boomerang Shelter and took out large collections of perishable items, especially materials such as baskets, bags, and sandals. Turkey feather blankets were also encountered, although these are even more susceptible to weathering and decomposition than the baskets and sandals. Each one was a very time-consuming production. Two iridescent beetle adornments are the only ones archaeologists have from Basket Maker II culture. Researchers have been unable to locate another jewellery fragment made of iridescent beetles that was found in the 1950s at the Tularosa cave in New Mexico. But now it seems likely that they and similar goods made of delicate materials like feathers, plant fibres, and animal hides were the epitome of status in the region between 500 BCE and 500 CE. Though quite why Basket Maker II shunned metal and semi-precious stones, even those endemic to the southwest like copper and turquoise, does remain a mystery. Quote, I do think, yeah, absolutely, there would have been more than just two people wearing these things. We do, as a species, like flaunting our wealth. Wheezy Squeeze books couldn't put it better. Very, very, very similar to what's being said here. Humans do like shiny things. They absolutely do. Victorians sometimes use beetle wings for dress embellishment. Of course, it's also we crush beetles up for cochineal. And I remember, I think it was an America's Next Top Model, where they had hissing cockroaches that they had put gemstones on and were using, and they had them like they glued little things so they had like a chain that they could then be pinned onto clothes. I'm probably showing my age, the fact that I remember that. But I do. And that's the first thing I thought of when I saw this news piece. We have a challenge to the notion of when horses made their way into the Indigenous people of the American West lives. Seemingly, it's half a century earlier than previously thought. Centuries-old horse skeletons from the American Southwest are helping to rewrite a colonial myth, which is that when the Spanish colonized the region in the 17th century, they didn't introduce horses to Indigenous people as long thought. Instead, horses were present in the Southwest long before Europeans and were traded by Indigenous people who formed close, sacred relationships with them. Using tools such as radiocarbon dating, ancient and modern DNA analysis, and isotope analysis, A large and diverse team of researchers from 15 countries and multiple Native American groups have now determined that horses did indeed spread across the continent earlier and faster than previously assumed. Quote, our findings have deep ramifications for our understanding of social dynamics in the Great Plains during a period of disruptive social change for Indigenous peoples. Our new data suggests that ancestral Comanche had already integrated horse raising, ritual practices, not a drinking game, and transport into their lifestyles at least a full half century before their southward migration. This project, we are told, is a chance for them as native people to put our voices out there and take better care of important and sacred animals in museum collections. So, to me, that says more work to be done and thus potentially more discoveries to be had. I've put this in medieval, even though it's a Ptolemaic manuscript. I have put it in medieval because it was found in a medieval abbey. In some cases, I'm classifying things based upon feeling. I'm not gonna lie. This feels like the way to go. Researchers have revealed a hidden manuscript on a recycled piece of parchment that is thought to have been written by the Greek mathematician Claudius Ptolemy. After years of painstaking work, the team that come from the Sorbonne and New York universities have deciphered a long-lost message detailing the construction and uses of an ancient tool for tracing distances and the stars. So we've got here a photograph on the left of a recycled manuscript at the Biblioteca Ambrosina in Milan, which is undergoing, at this point, what we're seeing here, it's undergoing imaging to reveal the hidden text. Next to it, we have ultraviolet fluorescence imaging of the manuscript that's revealing Ptolemy's Greek, as it's shown as a lighter brown traces between the dark brown Latin text that's found in Isidore of Seville's etymologies. So this has been reworked. The parchment on which the manuscript had been written was found in the library of the Bobbio Abbey in Italy, and it's now stored at the Biblioteca Ambrosiana in Milan. Quote, the monks of the Bobbio Abbey, where our manuscript come from, were great recyclers of pages from disused books, since parchment was always very expensive. So there's this quote, there's a special pleasure that comes from teasing new knowledge out of fragmentary and difficult to read sources and making unexpected connections with the things that we already know about ancient science. Moreover, I have a particular interest in Ptolemy, who was not only the most important and influential writer on astronomy of Roman times, but also a remarkably interdisciplinary figure who did significant work on cartography, music theory, visual perception, and even astrology. Continuing on, even with the new imaging, some of the pages are really hard to read, partly because the erasure of the Greek writing was sometimes pretty thorough, partly because, second, the Latin text is sometimes right on top of the Greek traces, and partly because of Mai's chemical wash. With improved imaging and image processing, they are benefiting from knowing the subject and the author. Ptolemy has a distinctive style and vocabulary, and it helps to be familiar with. They are making substantial progress towards a complete and accurate transcription, but it may take a while to get there. There's a summary of these findings that have been published in the Archive of History of Exact Sciences. It was published on March the 9th, 2023, if you should choose to check that out. We're back on eggs. This is a very eggy episode. In fact, when we come to social glyphs, find a variety of egg. Maybe put some eggs in the comments. We've had eggs a lot. Scientists gain insight into the old masters artists' use of egg in oil painting. researchers believe that egg was used by the likes of Botticelli and Da Vinci for fine-tuning of oil paint properties. The use of egg as a binding medium for pigments, a form of paint known as egg tempera, not egg tempura, which sounds delicious, except for take out the egg and add the tempura. He has a long history, turning up in works including the mural paintings of the Palace of Nestor in Pylos, which dates back to the 1200 BC. In the 15th century, there was a shift in European paintings towards using oil as a binder instead, which is an approach favoured by early Netherlandish painters such as Jan van Eyck. But despite this shift, egg has been found in the works of old master artists such as Sandro Botticelli and Leonardo da Vinci, with the former's lamentation over the dead Christ among those featuring the use of egg within the oil paint. We have a quote: "By changing preparation technique, you can change the properties of paint. Thus, two paints with the same composition can have different microstructures and thus will result in different properties." Yes, Justine, we have some lovely, I like your yolk. We have got some very foul behavior that's going on. Very nice. I'm loving the various egg chats. If you use it as a binder in tempura, why not use it in addition to other mediums as well? Well, I mean, you can bind the breadcrumbs for tempura and then wrap it around a prawn. But that's a different kind of art. It's the art of cuisine. Is this for real? For real? Madonna trial being banned in Florida. Is that a belated April Fool's, or is that something what is it because she's a single mum? Is it? Does that count? Does a virgin birth count as a single mum? Does Joseph? Do you know what? That's not a deep dive. That's not a deep dive that I want to do right now. I tell you. Let's hop back to this. I always wanted to paint, but I'm a little chicken. Hey, Treppo Fraidy cat. You're terrible. I enjoy it. Now I'm feeling rather peckish. What? And we've got tempura. Do you know what? Next takeaway night, I'm gonna have sushi. Apparently, it was bad because Mary didn't look happy enough. Oh, you know what? That something in literally the rage fired on all cylinders, and I had so many so many furious comments. None came out. It just made me do that. So essentially, because she isn't smiling enough, and they can't make her just screaming in female experience. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm gonna Google this. Is it Florida? Okay, it's also first of April. Please tell me. Please tell me it's 1st of April. I'm gonna look into it. I'll update you next time. But if it's real, that hurts my brain. I'm not okay. Hopping on. Scotland's oldest tartan has been found in a Highlands bog. This could potentially date back 500 years, dating to around between 1500 to 1600 CE. It's the oldest known surviving specimen of true tartan in Scotland. It was found almost 40 years ago in a peat bog 15 miles west of Loch Ness. It's believed that it connects potentially and was made during the reign of Mary Queen of Scots. It's a 55 centimetre by 43 centimetre little piece, and it's expected to go on display at the Scottish V&A Dundee Museum in their tartan exhibition on Saturday. we've okay. Just okay. So it says April Fools on that one about family values. Isn't I'm going to get back to the title in a minute, but isn't it wild? Because when I was looking at the history news, April Fools, I was just kind of going, and in fact, generally the April Fools, in many cases, it was kind of hard to find humour because I just went, yeah, could have happened. um, Northern European bogs are cool and waterlogged conditions that create highly acidic environments, which are ideal for preservation. Now, this is saying that Scottish clans and families have used plaid patterns for centuries as badges of identity. Now, that's something that I have questions about because I am of the understanding that demarcation of clan tartan is something that is based upon a book that purports to come from the 1500s, but in fact doesn't. And I don't believe there's any reference of it before, much before, I want to say the 1800s, but let me double check that. So I have questions about this, but nevertheless, the the finding of textile is very interesting. This analysis, conducted by scientists from the Scottish National Museums, indicated the presence of four colours: green, brown, possibly red, and yellow. Plaid patterns are traditionally designed and woven in Scotland and have been used for centuries by Scottish clans and families as a badge of identity. I want to double check that. The potential presence of red, a colour that the Gaelic communities considered a status symbol, is interesting because of the more rustic nature of the cloth. This piece is not something you would associate with a king or someone of high status, but by that time, they're in Tudor, like traditionally Tudor dress. So, okay. Um, the use of indigo or woad in the green colour and lack of any synthetic dye indicates it's made before the 1750s. Subsequent radiocarbon dating identified the most probable period from between 1500 to 1600. Modern adaptation of tartan-like styles, commonly referred to as plaid, have become popular fashion choices. Thank you for that information. Yes, this is being called the Glen Affric tartan. We are told that to be able to exhibit it is immensely important in the understanding of the textile tradition from which modern tartan derives. And I'm sure visitors will appreciate seeing this on public display for the very first time. Yes, I think so. I think that is utterly fascinating. If people are going to make it to the tartan exhibition, do let us know what you think. The National Portrait Gallery has raised, in collaboration with the Getty Museum, they have raised a sum of money together to purchase a Joshua Reynolds portrait. So they have jointly acquired this painting, but the plan is to send the work between the US and the UK, which is a very interesting custody agreement for a painting. The London National Portrait Gallery has been desperate to raise enough funds to purchase Sir Joshua Reynolds' 1776 painting Portrait of May. The plan being that it would be kept in Britain. It's a very significant painting as it depicts one of the first Polynesians to ever visit Britain. They have found a way to acquire the painting, but they've had to team up with the J. Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles. So they're going to pay half. They're going to go halvesies. They're going to split the tab to pay half of the £50 million or $62 million price tag. This is the first time that museums in the UK and US have partnered to acquire this. In the statement, Kathryn Fleming, who is the CEO of the J. Paul Getty Trust, said that the agreement was, quote, an innovative approach to ownership, yes, that maximises accessibility and viewability while placing Portrait of Mai in a rich and multifaceted transatlantic context. So the National Portrait Gallery had intended to buy this portrait single-handedly, and there was a fundraising campaign launched. As of March the 10th, the export ban is due to expire at this date, and the National Portrait Gallery has raised less than half of the money needed for the. Apparently, my microphone is buffering. I don't know what that means. Is my sound breaking up? If it is, I don't quite know how to fix that right now. So I'm going to power on through. So they'd raised half the money as of March the 10th, which is the date that the export ban is running out. So they've got to try and fix it up. So the deal did go through. They're going to share this with the Getty Trust, and they're going to periodically send this painting back and forth, and neither are going to charge money for the visitors to see it. It's expected to be on view at the Getty in 2028 when LA hosts the Olympic Games. So, quote, the complex artistic and historical issues that this painting raises will form the basis for a joint research initiative on 18th century British portraiture involving exhibitions, conferences, and technical investigations. We very much hope that this acquisition and the collaborations that flow from it will inspire other innovative models of collecting, sharing, and protecting artistic heritage across nations, cultures, and people, as long as people just stop stealing it. I will be happy. But this is interesting. I think it's a very interesting way to do collection management, and I look forward to seeing where this continues on. Let's see what other things can be jointly acquired and have a kind of transatlantic custody arrangement. Interesting. Last in the news is a challenging one. We have this now. There are loads of pictures in this National Geographic article, all of mummified human remains. So obviously, and some of them are frankly a little disturbing to look at. These are Mexican mummies that are drawing crowds and controversy, we're told. This Guanajuato, Mexico, has been on the UNESCO World Heritage List since 1988. Within it, the biggest tourist attraction in this central Mexican city is an underground museum of more than 100 mummies, rather mummified remains, we are told in this article. There is a description. It's an appropriate description. Slack-jawed men, leathery skinned infants, and other corpses. You can come and see it for a few pesos. This has been happening since 1969 in a place called Museo de las Momias, which I'm assuming means Museum of the Mummies. These are all naturally preserved corpses, so there's no bandages or embalming, and they are from the 19th and 20th centuries. They are referred to here as a revenue generator and a source of local pride. The mummies are, I think, perhaps understandably controversial because travellers from other cultures have a hard time grasping why one of Mexico's most beautiful cities displays macabre human remains. Some scholars think they are badly stored and mislabeled. Earlier this year, plans for a glitzy new Momias museum were scrapped after scholars and UNESCO reps balked at its location atop a proposed downtown shopping mall. Mexican tourists, by which I think they mean Mexican people who are Mexican who are tourists rather than tourists to Mexico, we are told tend to accept corpses on display with a mix of interest and respect, but not revulsion. They explain this is the birthplace of the Dias de los Muertos. For Mexicans, the quote says, this isn't bizarre or weird. We have a comfort level with death. We take food to our dead loved ones on the Day of the Dead and invite mariachis into the ceremony. Okay. So around this site, you'll hear ghostly whispers about the origins of the mummy. Some were buried alive, others died in cholera outbreaks, all preserved due to mineral-rich soil. Is this the same thing as ceremonial interaction with deceased, mummified remains of ancestors and loved ones who you know the name of, who you know the identity of? That's what I'm flagging up here. Profiting from them by placing them on display, to me, feels different from the reverence of going and spending time with them. It might not be what we do in my culture. We don't spend time with our mummified remains. We don't go and take them bottles of beer. We don't have mariachi bands, but it feels different, that honoring and memorialization to what's happening here. Very happy to be disagreed with by people who understand this culture far better than I ever will. We then have this notion that there are miraculous mummies, which gravediggers then prop alongside walls in an underground ossuary. Some are still wearing their burial clothes. For a small fee, the attendant will admit the visitor to the Chamber of Horrors, opined a National Geographic magazine travel article from July 1916. A winding stair leads to the crypt, where ghastly mummified remains are placed in a ghostly row, grinning resentment at the curious. I mean, that just feels a bit much. On top of that, we're told that over the years, tourists have stolen the mummies' name tags as souvenirs, which has robbed them of their identity. So museum guides and locals filled these gaps by giving them new names and magical narratives. So a body of a woman who had a scoliosis was called La Bruja, meaning the witch. I wonder how that woman would feel about being labelled as that in death. Another corpse was known as El Ahogado, the drowned man. It makes me uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm uncomfortable with this. A study is launched in February, spurred by complaints about this new museum in the shopping mall. Critics took issue with the city government ferrying the fragile body out to out-of-town conventions. So they're moving them about. Okay, cool. And then also displaying them in one of the underground tunnels during a car rally. Okay. Right, fair enough. The project has been digging through 19th and 20th century death certificates, church document, and newspapers to identify the mummies. And they then used forensics, so x-rays, DNA of hair, teeth, and skin, to try and link these individuals to potentially their descendants. They should be treated like human bodies, says San Milan. And this means, he says, that if a previously unknown mummy turns out to be someone's great-great-grandfather and the descendants disapprove of it being on display, it'll be reinterred immediately and without any problem. So which says to me that there is a conception that the way these remains are being treated is disrespectful. There's an understanding that it's not appropriate, because if a family member can say, no, not my granddad, and it's immediately buried, what that says to me is there is an expectation that a family member would want that to happen. And if that is the case, why? Presumably because there is a recognition that there is disrespect here. The scholars who are involved in this study and other experts hope that this new study will improve how the mummies are showcased and give them recognition as cultural artifacts. I mean, artifacts makes me uncomfortable, but culturally, I can't speak to that being an issue. But to me, it's an issue, but I'm not of that culture. Updating the museum's climate control and storing bodies horizontally instead of vertically will also help with preservation. Quote, these are just regular people who are repositories of information about the period they lived in. They walked in the streets. They went to the old market. They shouldn't be a freak show. They shouldn't be a freak show. I completely agree. I also wonder if they should be described as repositories of information. So those are our new news. It got a bit dark at the end there. The way the bodies, and the bodies weren't placed there. It's not an ossuary of intention. You're right. There are ossuaries where that's the plan. Bury the remains or place the remains in a charnel house. They rot down. Then there's a knowledge that it's going to go into an ossuary, and there doesn't seem to be. Yes, this is a law was enacted locally requiring families to pay a burial tax to ensure the perpetual burial of a loved one. So if the tax was not paid, the body was removed. Thus is the problem, as with things like bodyworks. There's this notion that there is a donation element to it, that this is not donations. In the same way Body Worlds was not a donation, or Body Works was not a donation, and it affects the people who, for whatever reason, can't afford to do what is required of them to be treated with respect in death. So I'm moving on to my next and final selection of news items. And first up, it's our favourite bit. I'm going to ring my bell. My little peeing boy, my ding dong bell, because we are moving straight on to our ding dong news. Here we go. The enigma of the Lascaux Birdman. This is the best title of an article I've ever seen. The erection that embodies the mysteries of prehistoric art. I mean, this is a wall painting depicting a dead man alongside a bison and rhinoceros, which has intrigued researchers since it's been discovered in 1940. Okay. Okay, get your poop in a Greek woman. Around 1800 years ago, at a depth of 5 meters, in a well with a significant amount of carbon dioxide, someone used black paint to depict the following scene. A man with his mouth wide open, or else with a bird's head, is lying on his back with an obvious erection. Next to a bison, pierced by a spear with its guts hanging out. At his side, he has a staff with a bird drawn on top. To the left of the scene, there is a rhinoceros with 6 points arranged at the level of the anus. Is it defecating on the recumbent man? Excellent question that we're all asking ourselves. It's a strange scene. Yes, babes. First, because in the prehistoric art of that period, human beings are hardly represented at all. That's the weirdest bit, obviously. Animals were the main subject matter. Only much later do people show up. And second, it's strange because of the 1,000 story possibilities offered by the scene. I'm just a significant amount of carbon dioxide is I'm just going to show you a little close up. It's a very pointy erection. Is it? That's an excellent question. Is it the world's first depiction of explosive diarrhea? That's the question we're all pressing ourselves. I've seen that. Who came up with Penigma? Was it you? Such a Penigma. That is going to come into my daily dialect. I don't know how. It probably won't be appropriate when I'm teaching children. Well, how do we know? It's a Penigma. Was Henry VIII the father of Mary Boleyn's children? I don't know. It's a Penigma. Oh boy. There's a lot happening here. To me, I think this is where I'm going with it. I think I was never, and I had a misspent youth, but it did not involve psychedelics. But I've heard talk of psychedelics, and this feels like the sort of thing that people see when they've eaten their own body weight in shrooms, frankly. It's just, what is going on? And you know what's brilliant? Do you know what's absolutely brilliant? Is we are never going to decipher this. Forever, it will be a weird bloke with his mouth wide open and a raging boner. Oh, hey, yeah, that's a good point. And Michaela, a possible new viewer. We are all technically adults, but we're having a fun time. Mushrooms did grow back then. They did. And so did like some weird, crops, grain crops, maize crops that made people go loop-de-loo and see witches in Salem. So this feels... I mean, I don't quite know how the bison is definitely dead. Oh, it's the entrails. Is that definitely entrails? I mean, I suppose they're saying it's entrails. And also we've got a pooping rhino who may or may not be dead. I don't know. Did he spear the bison and then get a boner? Why? Why the boner? Possibly a dead bison with entrails hanging out. Possibly a pooping rhino. Which of those things has excited this individual that he is going with a massive lob on? Is my question. It's my question. It being alive make it... I don't think... I mean, does it make it... the question is, does being dead make it worse? Does being alive make it worse? I think arguably no. Do you know what? I'm not going to get into the ethical conundrum of this because I feel like it will put me on a watch list. Oh, Debbie, I can't put that on screen, but that's gross. Yeah, well, maybe the artist just had a slip of the brush. Do you know what? It's possible. I hear that there's lots of things that slip sometimes when they shouldn't. Oh, do you know what? That's it. Maybe that's it. It was a fear and relief boner. He thought he was going to get trampled by a bison. He managed to skewer the bison. Entrails fell out. In the relief, he was inspired to make a trouser tent. Why is it also... Maybe that's it. Maybe you've cracked it. Double high. Carbon monoxide and shrooms. Carbon dioxide and shrooms. Boo, boo, boo. Why the Woody? I mean, that is the question down the ages. Why the Woody? Never shall we know. But that's my ding dong. Not mine. His, maybe. I don't know. A victory penigma. Okay. That's my ding dong of the week. Let's move on to events and exhibitions. Let's try and be adults once again. I say we be adults. Well, just one more. A peacock splays its mighty tail while the early human terrifies with his erect penis. Jarrod, there is not enough brain bleach in the world for this to not become your fever dream later. So enjoy. Sleep well. Okey pokes. Oh, no, not okey pokes. Don't take that. Maybe it was to show his hunting skill and virility. Maybe he was like, I'm a real boy, disemboweled a bison. Check out my massive lob on. Who knows? Fascinating. Right. First exhibition, Titanosaur at the Natural History Museum in London. This is a display, Life as the Biggest Dinosaur. They have a display on, this is the first time it's going on display in Europe. This dinosaur was 4 times heavier than Dippy the Diplodocus, 12 meters longer than Hope the blue whale. That's the blue whale that's in the hall currently. It's a truly gigantic creature. It's in a gallery. Now, it is free for members. So the museum entry itself is free, but this has a separate ticket. Adult tickets from £16. If you're a member of the Natural History Museum, you get to go in for free. It looks really cool. And on the article that's linked in the Opera Pinboard, there are some cool pictures of it as well. Next up, we have this one that I think, I should also point out that also on the Opera Pinboard, as well as links to where you can buy tickets, there's also information or a link to the accessibility of each of these sites. That's what she said. Oh dear. This is at COSI or COSI. I don't know if it's the acronym is pronounced as COSI. What's interesting about this, Tutankhamun, his tomb and treasures, I think I've talked about enough how I don't love the idea of human remains being displayed in museums, especially not in places that don't belong to the culture. This is going on now. It's American, so that means it's going till September, month 1st, 4th of September 2023. Is that correct? Is that what that means? Or is it the 9th? Oh, it's COSI. Okay, so this is at COSI. What I think is really interesting about this is that what's on display are, quote, expertly crafted replicas. This is aiming to set a new trend. Visitors can experience the history of an exciting excavation. However, it comes up against a limitation. The sensitive original objects that require preservation that cannot and should not be presented in complex exhibition scenarios. Supporting repatriation ethical exhibits is the utmost importance to our mission at, what did you say? How did you say it was pronounced again? COSI. Especially when it comes to celebrating and respecting different cultures. Carol, thank you for that. You are quite correct. The Centre of Science and Industry in Columbus, Ohio. Friends, if you are in Ohio, that message alone, as far as I'm concerned, I support this message. I support the fact that they are actually literally putting their money where their mouth is. They are risking an exhibition that is experimental in this nature. If you're in Ohio, if you're going to Ohio before September the 4th, please check it out. Report back. Let us know what it's like to see replica pieces. Did you feel that something was lost, or did you actually feel the benefit from knowing that it's not, damaging or indeed exploiting this stuff? Let us know. Fabulous. So yeah, do check it out. This is pretty cool. This is a free exhibition. So what you can see here are little sculptures that have been put inside the eye of a needle. And this is happening at Woollerton Hall. This is from the 1st of April, and I'm not quite sure when it finishes because I couldn't seem to find that. These are Willard Wigan exhibitions called Miniature Masterpieces. We have 20 sculptures, including 4 new sculptures, as part of a free exhibition at Woollerton Hall. You may have to purchase a ticket for the hall itself, but on a separate ticket for this event. These sculpted pieces are all in the eye of a needle. And it's all in a dedication to a world where nothing does exist. Small things can become everything. It's just so unbelievably cool. So yeah, that looks brilliant. I think they have I was going to say telescopes, spy pickers. Oh, Wendy, this might be the thing. Go and get glasses purely for this. Maybe that's what does it. We have this one is in the Stadtlich Museum in Berlin. Gerhard Richter, 100 Works of Berlin, included in this. are these 4 canvases, which I believe, from my understanding, these are the series called Birkenau from 2014. 4 large format abstract paintings. Birkenau is the result of Richter's long and in-depth engagement with the Holocaust and the possibilities of representing it. The works are based on 4 photographs taken in the concentration camp at Auschwitz-Birkenau, which the artist transposed with charcoal and oil paint to create 4 canvases before gradually painting over them abstractly. So this is on until 2026. They don't have a precise end date, but that's in the Stadtlich Museum in Berlin. For those of us who have been watching on with interest about these finds that were found under the sea, the palmwood wreck, so the dress and the wedding dress, if you want to see them on display and if you want to find out more about them, then this is the place to go, the Museum Kapskill. And that is in Texel, which is a small island connected to Amsterdam, or as part of Amsterdam. So the Netherlands, rather. Sorry, this is it's maybe near Amsterdam. My geography is appalling. But Texel, which is where this is an island that's part of the Netherlands, or next to the Netherlands, and this is where this stuff is. They have an exhibit on. They're looking after it. They're studying it as well. So do check that out. And if you make it down there, let us know what you think. That is the word I was looking for. A peepee spy hole is probably a magnifying glass, isn't it? It's. Do you know what? This is what happens when I've been on for the best part of 2.5 hours. Clearly, I have lost the capacity to do language. So, fortunately, we are in the. Thank you for the update. So, Texel is the biggest island in the north of the Netherlands. Amsterdam is not near there. I apologise. I have literally the worst geography. I did look at Texel on a map. I was surprised that it was an island. I was trying to work out how it connected to the landmass. Not my strong suit. I have been to Berlin. I had a lovely time. I went on a school trip, in fact, to Berlin when I was a young girl. Well, I was 18. I had a great time. The condition of these fabrics are exquisite. That's one of the reasons why it's such an impressive find, is because we can see so much of this, and presumably, certainly also the way it was constructed, which is an incredible rarity to have full, not just one, but full gowns like this. Righty-ho. Lasty, but no means leasty, we have the German Shish, I apologise for that already, that pronunciation, the National Museum. This is from the 30th of March, so it's already open, until the 10th of September 2023. Horizons, Histories and Futures of Migration. So it's a bunch of images from then up to now exploring this topic. It looks, the pictures that are linked on the website look incredible. I think it would be a fabulous exhibition to go and check out. That, friends, we are 2 hours and 23 minutes of news, which it's been a roller coaster, frankly, hasn't it? Of rage, laughter, sadness, other feelings are available. Spectacular. Righty-ho. We are going to wrap up now, friends. So we're going to stick with the egg social glyph. I saw some already. Put them in. Now I've done a few in the chat. If you get a chance, put them in the comments underneath this video when it becomes a video. That would be great. Please make sure you are subscribed to the channel, that you have clicked the bell, and that you have selected all. So allegedly, YouTube will tell you when I've next uploaded. I can't promise that. It clearly is temperamental at best. Hadrian, thank you for noticing. There was so much to cover today. And I am going to go and have my dinner and a nap. Because woohoo! Wherever you are on your Monday, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday. And for that matter, have a great week as well. I will, as per usual, be in the premiere stream on Friday in the live chat there, and looking forward to conversing with you all about this week's topic. Until then, I do hope you are going to take care of yourselves. Have a great week. But for me, for now, it is goodbye. Bye, guys.